So there are two of us now. My brows nudged towards each other. Amren's lips were a slash of red. We who were born something else and found ourselves trapped in new strange bodies. A Court of Mist and Fury, page 162, an exchange between Amren and Feyre.
Hi guys, welcome back to the Massive Encyclopedia. I'm Rev.
And I'm Kat, and we are your hosts through the world of Sarah J. Maas.
This is the podcast where we're building a full cross-series encyclopedia. Characters, world building, Easter eggs, and all of the connections SJM has been hiding in plain sight. Okay, you ready? I'm going to get started with the chapter summary for 16 through 21.
Love it. Let's go.
Starting with chapter 16, Feyre has dinner with the inner circle, and we get to know more about all of our characters, Rhys, Mor, Cassian, Azriel, and Amren. In this dinner, Feyre realizes that she has maybe found her first ever bestie. Rhys tells the family that he thinks Hybern wants to resurrect Jurian. Feyre goes to the prison on the island to see the bone carver seeking information regarding the Jurian resurrection situation, but she can't get under the mountain because of her previous trauma with the under the mountain situation in Amarantha that she experienced before. Amren gives her an under the mountain get out of jail free card in the form of an amulet. We learn that this amulet freed Amren from the prison. Rhys mentions the prison might be an 8th court. I really want to keep track of that. The bone carver appears different to every person. Feyre sees an 8-ish-year-old boy with blue and or violet eyes at different times. Rhys sees Jurian. Rhys gives the bone carver the bone that Feyre used to kill the Midgard worm, and Feyre reveals her experiences of death to the bone carver, and in return, the bone carver tells them about the cauldron and the 3 feet got removed from a cauldron. He said it was to remove some of the power from the cauldron. I'm wondering if other people were trying to steal a little bit of power of the cauldron. He also tells them about the Book of Breathing that has spells that can cancel the cauldron powers, and that it was split in half. One part were given to the Fae, and the second part were given to the human queens. Feyre might be able to find both halves with the like calls to like. The inner circle decides to get the Book of Breathing halves from the Summer Court and the other half from the 6 human queens. Feyre is named the human emissary of the Fae to get access to the 6 human queens. And the inner circle decide they will plan a trip to Summer Court. To prove that she can find the book halves by the like calls to like theory, Feyre must go to the Weaver and retrieve something that belongs to Rhys. It is a blue stoned ring, and she is successful, but barely successful, in asking Cassian to train her so she will never be weak again. Kat, do you want to jump into the deep dive?
I do. Man, there are a lot of things that happen in this chapter chunk. So we are going to talk about 3 main topics in this week's episode. We're going to talk about family and power and trauma, and I am sure they're going to all, interweave with each other. But Rev, let's talk a little bit more about the idea of family in this book and in the inner circle, in the night court. How does this sense of family challenge what Feyre thinks of as family, how she perceives family, and what she's been shown about family?
The first thing about family is we have shown Feyre has her blood family. She also has her chosen family, which started out with Tamlin and Lucien and Alice, and then has now transitioned into the night court, the inner circle. There's so much to explore. I want you to go off on a couple of these topics. Starting out, let's talk about brothers in the sense that all bastards are brothers related to our Illyrian bastards, all 3 of them. And then we can proceed to maybe how that eventually includes Lucien. Do you want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, I think there's this sense when you have these bastards or orphans that they don't have anyone to help them or rely on them. And that's one of the reasons why the three of them get together. We learn it's after Azrael comes to the Illyrian camp that they realized everybody hated them. It's almost like the enemy of my enemy is my friend. That's kind of how the three of them became friends. And then they just became inseparable. And I think later on, we'll have to keep an eye on it and see what happens in these upcoming books. But Lucian kind of falls into that. The enemy of my enemy becomes my friend. Lucian was friends with Tamlin, but now he's crossed a line, and Lucian has literally crossed to the other side. So I think there's this sense that it's us against the world. And I feel like that's true for the Night Court, but especially the Inner Circle, and even more especially for the three Illyrians. What are your thoughts about the blood relationship within the Inner Circle and with Feyre's blood relations?
Feyre's blood relations end up becoming so important in later books, but we also see how they're going to become immediately important as Feyre gets chosen to be the human emissary. So she has access to the 6 queens to get the second half of that book. And then she's going to have to like make nice with her family, her blood family, her sisters, and her father to get access to a place in the human lands where the 6 human queens will feel safe. And so we are going to, in the future, have to see her go back to the human lands to like set up an area that's like a safe zone, if you will. And then also then we know what happens with her sisters in the future and that blood family, how it also becomes chosen family to other people that are in the Inner Circle, like everyone joins eventually, but also blood family of Mor and Rhys. Like Mor is blood related to Rhys in that they are cousins. But of all the people in the Inner Circle, Feyre is a maid fae. Amren, nobody has any idea of what she is. Cassian and Azrael are Illyrian. Rhys is half Illyrian. Mor is the only full-blooded fae. And she's the only one with a title. So like when we start talking about what people's powers are, what being full-blooded and the only titled person that's full fae in the Inner Circle, what kind of powers does she have? Because she's what, number 2, number 3? She's number
She's 2. I always think she's 3 and you always correct me. Yeah.
And then Az and Cass are like 3 and 4 or 4 and 5. But like we never figure out, other than what we saw when she went in and rescued Feyre from the Spring Court, and she just demolished everyone there, but didn't kill anyone. Like her powers are so precise. So I just wonder what her powers are, how that relates. If she's blood related to Rhys, what have they inherited that is similar, and what have they inherited that is different?
Well, and we know that he's the most powerful High Lord in history. So, like, they are both forces to be reckoned with. I think one of the things I want to talk about really quickly about the idea of family before we move on to power is just noting that on chapter 16 is essentially she's meeting the family. And on 164 is when she realizes that this dinner is a family dinner. It's not a court event. And I think it's really important to differentiate, because it always felt like when she was in the Spring Court that it was a court event. There were courtiers, there was a different, the lords were there, the ladies were there, Tamlin's friends, but they never really felt like friends. It was his hunting buddies. Ianthe was showing people around. It felt very stiff, whereas this feels relaxed. They've done this a million times, and it shocks her, I think.
Well, also because even when she had just those, I say one-on-one, but it's one-on-two, when it was just her and Lucian and Tamlin, it did not feel like an informal, relaxed dinner
Hmm.
with everyone. Everything was still tense. And I wonder, is that just because of Tamlin's being tense?
I think at the end of the day, you've just made a really great point. The dinners between Feyre, Lucian, and Tamlin were always Feyre, Lucian, and the High Lord. At the end of the day, Tamlin had the last word in every conversation. Lucian had to lower his head, had to relax what he wanted to say.
And
Whereas
so did Feyre. Feyre had to just succumb to whatever Tamlin said with Lucian's bidding.
well, and she was too scared really to say much. But in this scene with the dinner party, what we're seeing is they're cutting each other off, they're making fun of each other. No one is sitting there being afraid of Reese. I mean, I don't think anyone at that table is scared to look Reese in the eye and say, "You're being an idiot." No one would ever say that to Tamlin. And I think that's where she realizes on page 169, she thinks of them as a unit. The tension and simmering anger of a unit who had endured so much. She is seeing them not as individual players within this court. She is seeing them as a family from the first interaction with them.
Even like when Moore walks in and the guys are making fun of her, like, why did you get so dressed up? What's going on here? This is just a family dinner. We do this all the time. And she's like, I wanted to impress Feyre. It imparts so much knowledge of how this family interacts with each other. They can make fun of Moore, but then Moore's also like, but Feyre's new and she's like a girl and like, I kind of want to be her bestie. And so like, I wanted to impress her.
She's number 3 in the hierarchy of this court, and the general and the spy master are making fun of her. That would never happen in the spring court. That would never happen in the autumn court. I don't think there's another court where it's this relaxed, but I feel like we learn pretty quickly in this section that this isn't like your traditional courts. Reese gave people the option, you go under me, a half bastard, half Illyrian, or you get out. And a lot of people got out.
There's also the part with Amren on page 167 where she says, our enemies. And then later on page 192, Reese says, she was my ally, maybe my friend, long before that. She's not Fae. She's not human. She's not Illyrian. We don't know what she is, but she's also accepted into this family. And like, as much as everyone teases each other and disrespects each other, they disrespect each other in a respectful way, and that they all are like, I'd never say something so harsh to you that I would piss you off and you wouldn't be my family anymore. Like, they still all love each other.
I mean, think of it when Reese keeps buying Amren jewelry, right? He's doing that because it's his love language is gifts. I think that's a topic we can talk about on another.
I think that's also Amren's love language is buy me gifts. They understand each other.
She's like, my love language is accepting gifts. It works out really well.
Thank you. Big deal.
I think that is a big thing where Reese is like, I want her to know I appreciate her. I want her. That is what family does. With family, you never have to say, can I come over? The door's always opened. And I think in this chapter, especially when we see the inner court or the inner circle, what we're seeing is the door is always open.
I think that's interesting because the first day that Feyre is at the house, the door is locked. And the guys are like beating on it. And it's like Amren and Cass and Az. And they're like, the hell's going on here? Like, are you going to let us in or what? Like, can we meet her? What's going on? What's going on in there? And they're so surprised. But I mean, I think that's as a result of them always having the door open and it's never locked. And it's just like, family is family. You're here. You're always welcome. That was like a one weird exception, but it was him like having to protect Feyre. And Nuala in Caradwyn, taking her upstairs so that the guys could come in, because Rhys is never going to just leave the door locked for all of his family.
Well, and the whole family comes in because we know Amryn and Mor are there.
Yeah.
But okay, so you've already touched a little bit on this. I want to move on to the next topic of power, because there is so much power that is seen in this chapter chunk. There's so much that's expressed, and there's a couple of ways to think about it, but I think one of them is looking at this through Feyre's perspective. Because she's been a human and she's seen these Fey, why don't we talk a little bit about Feyre's powers, her ignorance of her own powers, and compare that with the inner circle?
I think it's interesting that Feyre has more powers than all of them.
Yes.
Right? Like, she has the ability to do the flames, the ice, the shadows, the wind,
who knows what she can do.
All the things. And she looks over during the family dinner and sees like these siphons, the gauntlets, as you phrase them, what they wear on their hands that contain the siphons that are the stones that hold the power. And like, Az's are blue and Cass's are red. And she's just like looking at them and kind of studying them and being like, what are these? She almost seems like she's like envious that they know their powers so well and they can contain them so well. And she has no idea how to use her own. Okay, go ahead.
I just thought about it. I am sure people have thought about this before, but the fact that the siphons are blue and red, which are the two colors that cause her trauma. Red is a big trauma for her. Blue is the eyes of the Fae. She can't even look at them. And those are the colors that she embraces with the inner court or the inner circle.
I didn't even think about that. That I'm sure somebody has probably thought about it before us.
I am sure.
I love that you pointed that out. There's also this unknown power that Mor has that no one knows what she can do. Like, throughout book 5, we still don't know what Mor can do, but she can do some stuff. There's also the idea of what would be considered lower people having more power than anyone else. Like Amryn, we don't know what she can do. She's all powerful, but she's not one of the quote lower people. But Cassian, Azriel, and Feyre are all three what would be considered lower people, and they have more power than everyone, right? Like, Feyre has all the power of all the lords, and Cassian is the deadliest warrior that Rhys has ever seen. At some point in this chapter chunk, Feyre asks Rhys, can you like fight Cassian? Like, who do you think would win? And he's like, oh, Cassian would beat me. I mean, I'd give him a fight, but he'd win. He's the deadliest warrior I've ever seen, and that's why he leads my armies. So there's a lot of emphasis on all of this power placed on people who you would not necessarily in like real world think would have access or would be granted with this amount of power that they have.
I think it's also important to note or to show power doesn't always come from magic in these romantasy worlds. There is a power in the physicality of a warrior. The fact that Cassian is the strongest warrior he's ever seen. So that means pure Illyrians, high fae, all of these warriors he's worked with or known for the last 500 years, and Cassian is the strongest of them all. And the fact that he keeps trying to teach Feyre. He's like, you have to learn to read. Yeah, it's for his own purposes. But he's like, this is important for you to know. And the strength that they each seem to find with their own power, they really lean into it. You know, Azriel with his shadows leans into the quieter side. There is something to be said about being quiet in a lot of situations. There is something to be said about Amryn, who is so still. There's a lot of power contained in that little woman that even Rhysand, the most powerful High Lord in the history of Prythian, is scared of her.
We can add this to the TBD list. We'll talk about it in the future. But as another example of what you just said, what about the Valkyries? What about Gwyn and Nesta and
Emery?
Emery. Yes. Like we can see with this writing that they are going to be a big deal. And these are powers that are not from magic. These are powers that these girls are like, we're just going to be the best we can be, and we're going to train, and we're going to train so hard that no one's going to stop us. That is not one of our main character girlies in the majority of romantasy that are just born with this innate, end up being a god or end up being endowed with certain powers. They like train, and they are going to be badass girlies. And that is not magic at all.
No, that's coming from them. So let's kind of pivot this, because we've talked a lot about the inner circle, but we also see a lot of power in the Bone Carver and the Weaver, these two characters that are essentially imprisoned in their own ways. The Weaver has to stay in her house or stays in the wood. The Bone Carver is under the mountain, and
the Weaver can't even see, and she
right.
is terrifying to everyone, even to the highest, most powerful High Lord in Prythian.
Right. And they both are amazed by her. The Weaver even says, "What are you?" And this is on page 223. "What is like all but unlike all?" Feyre is something that even the Weaver, who has a house made out of body parts, has never seen.
I love her.
I do too.
You know, on Epic, my thing is the Weaver.
Yeah.
I didn't even do that myself.
I love it. And Amren says the Bone Carver will talk to her because she's different. And he says, with the cauldron, you could do things other than raise the dead. You could shatter the wall. That is how much power Feyre has. And she's so naive to it. She's so ignorant to what she can do.
And I think it also crosses over, like, naive cross with fear, that Amren gives her this amulet to make her feel powerful enough to be able to go into the prison on the island and say, it's okay, I know you couldn't go in the first time, but here. And she just, like, haphazardly, in my mind, just like chucks it on the bed, and she's like, just take this amulet. It's fine. I promise you'll be able to get out. It got me out. I think one of the ideas of power is this amulet. Is it so powerful that it got Amren out? And maybe it is. Or is the idea that Amren gave Feyre something really powerful that made Feyre feel powerful enough that she could go under the mountain? Like this amulet, is it something? Is it nothing? Is it placebo? Is it not? And if it is powerful, like Amren just haphazardly tosses it on the bed. Like, the amount of power that is, I think, trusted in each other and shared with each other, and like this bond of we will have each other's back, connects back to family, but also it connects to power. Like, if your power doesn't come from magic and this amulet is just a placebo, how much power did Amren just give Feyre when she just tosses that amulet on the bed? And like, it was power that Feyre already had, but that she didn't see until Amren made her see it after the fact.
It's that, I call it the Dumbo effect, right? Like, the fact he had to hold on to the feather. That's how he could fly. He could fly by himself the whole time. I always took the amulet to be the Dumbo effect, where she's like, this got me out. But it's that confidence. And I think you're right. This goes back to family, because she's not going to do that for Lucian. She's certainly not going to do that for Ianthe or probably even Gwen or Emery. This is something that she does for Feyre because Feyre is already accepted into their family unit without even trying.
This goes into it might be another chapter, but where we talk about where Amryn says, you are a friend of the family, so you are going to be targeted or something. I forget the exact quote and the exact
you're a
page.
friend of Rhysand, so you're automatically going to be a target, I think. One last thing I wanted to talk about on power before we move on to trauma, which I feel like, again, ties so well into family and power, is I feel like we get a couple of hints about Moore's power because it is very hush-hush. We are, 5 books into this series, and we have not seen her use her power. But on page 164, some power to allow her, Moore, to get into the fight with Amryn that Rhys had mentioned and walk away from it. She is very powerful to be able to go up against Amryn. And it's something like Rhys tells her that the two of them destroyed the cabin. That's how big this fight was. But then also on page 209, this feels very purposeful in the wording and the way Moore speaks. It's almost like an oracle speaking, and we know that her power is the truth. The land, Moore said, will run red with blood, Cassian, regardless of what we do with her family. It is now a matter of where that blood will flow and how much will spill. That feels very much like an oracle speaking. She has already seen it.
It's very heavy. We know that humans are going to die. We know Fae are going to die. We know that the blood is going to flow. But like, is she a seer? Is that her power? Is she just realizing like what comes from the cauldron and all the sequelae of that? I don't know. It's just like Prithian and its Fae and its magic and its power and more. What are you doing and what can you do?
I can't wait for her book. Okay, so let's move on to trauma. I feel like for this whole book, but specifically this chapter chunk, trauma feels like the elephant in the room. Every character in this unit has some sort of trauma. And what I'd like to talk about is how that trauma shapes not only the individuals, but how it shapes the inner circle as a whole. And how does it affect their family dynamic?
I think we can start out on page 175, where they start talking about how Rhys was captured and he cuts off whoever said that. I think it's Cassian. And he's like, that's a story for another time. He has so much trauma himself that is before even what happened with Amarantha. And so we get everyone's trauma that happened with Amarantha. That's our top level of trauma. There's also this underlying level of trauma with Moore and everything that happened to her that we hear about with the Autumn Court. And there's trauma with Amryn, how she's stuck in this world. There's trauma with Rhys, where he got captured. And I think by book 5, I think we still haven't heard what happens when he got captured, but maybe we do. But then there's also the trauma of Rhys and Cassian and Azriel about how they grew up. And like, there's also Tamlin's trauma. There's also Lucian's trauma. This entire series is built upon people overcoming trauma, but like there's so many stories we still have to discover based on where we are in this book. Book 2, a third of the way through, a quarter of the way through, and how much that trauma affects the decisions and the growth and the character arc that all these characters get throughout our story. And a lot of it, I think, is SJM being like, yeah, your life can suck, but here's a little bit of inspiration to like get better, get bigger, watch these people. I mean, more rescuing Feyre, I think our two biggest traumas is Feyre getting locked in and then more coming in and rescuing her. And then in this chapter chunk, more being able to explain, girl, I was there. Let me tell you what happened to me and how I got out. But all those things are built upon Rhys's trauma and Tamlin's trauma and Lucian's trauma. It's just so interlocked. I do want to make a statement about page 177 about how Feyre sees Mor as her first girlfriend and like how girlfriends help you recover from trauma.
Right. And I feel like one of the things about trauma, and I'm jumping ahead to the next chapter chunk, but it's a quote that has always stuck out to me. It's on page 239, chapter 22, when Mor says to Feyre, "There are good days and hard days for me, even now. Don't let the hard days win." This is someone who has experienced incredible physical, mental, and emotional abuse from her family, the people that are supposed to protect her, from her people under the mountain, and she is still able to smile. Rhys is still able to joke around with his brothers. I think you're right when you say, like, trauma builds all of these people. It is a huge part of them, but it is also them saying, I'm not going to let this keep me down. I am still able to survive in this. And I think, I mean, as ER nurses, we deal with this all the time, right? We always joke about being trauma bonded. We see things and do things and have to move on to the next patient after seeing horrible things and humanity at its best and worst and people at their healthiest and least healthiest. But you bond, you move on, and the next patient is the next concern. It's when you were talking about Amarantha, she is a shared trauma for all of Prythian, for this inner circle, especially where Amren says, we'll do anything for Valeris. And Cassian and Azriel won't even look at Feyre or Rhys because they are upset at themselves that their High Lord, that their best friend, that their brother was under the mountain for 50 years, being raped and tortured and locked away from them.
Rhys comes to Feyre and says, I can't believe you're going to go see the bone carver. I thought Cassian was going to punch me. Cassian is known, Feyre, for one dinner, but you're trauma bonded and you are a group and you are like forever stuck together, sticking up for each other.
And I mean, let's just talk about that aspect in itself. We are getting this whole book through Feyre's perspective, which is something that I think changes with Silver Flame. It's no longer in first person and it's more broader perspectives. But here we are seeing her trauma in a very visceral way. When she goes under the mountain, that first time when they go to the prison, she thinks, I can't go under another mountain. I can't do it. And she says to Rhys, please. And they're done. They go away because he understands that trauma. But as they're going down the second time, she just keeps thinking, I'm under the mountain. I'm under the mountain. And then she has the dream.
She also keeps focusing on the amulet. She's like, it's okay. I have Amren's amulet. I'm going to get out. I'm going to get out. Like the support.
And she has Rhys. Her hand is gripping him the whole time. But then we also have her dream of Amarantha, this person who has been dead. What is our time frame right now? 6 months, right? Because she had the 3 months without going to Rhys. They had the 2 months where she went to visit him. So we're roughly 6 to 7 months after Amarantha. She is still having these nightmares, and he is having nightmares. He tells her of the nightmares he has that are tied to Amarantha.
He also is still on the receiving end of her nightmares. At one point, he like wakes her up and shakes her, and he's like, hey, wake up, wake up.
Well, and she sees his trauma. I don't think anyone in the inner circle knows how bad his nightmares are because he's kept that from them, right? But she sees
Because he
him,
protects everyone.
right, but she sees and he tells her, I still have nightmares as well. But it not only solidifies them to be trauma bonded, but it also makes them each stronger. They don't view these traumatic events as weaknesses. They say, I'm not going to let it happen again. I'm going to get stronger. As opposed to in the spring court, Tamlin's response is just keep your head down. Don't let anyone know you have these powers. Whereas Cassian is like, I'm going to train you. And I'm going to be, if you think he's a prick, I'm worse. And Moore is the one who says, I've been where you are. I know people want to keep you down. We are not those people.
This is one of the things I really wanted to make sure we talked about on this episode. Moore is the first person that she sees as like, I've never had a girl who's a friend, because like her sisters and her struggle with just always hunting and always being out in the forest, she's never had a girlfriend. And like tying that back to the family dinner where Moore was like, you guys, I just wanted to impress Feyre. It's everyone recognizes, yo, we're all effed. We're
Right.
all broken. You know what? We all have each other. And that's what ties together the family with the power and the trauma. It is so
It's all
overarching.
connected.
It's hard to differentiate one from the other.
One of the last things I want to talk about with trauma, although we can talk a little bit more about it if you want, is the idea that Moore has already kind of walked these footsteps that Feyre is walking. She got out from the Court of Nightmares. She got out from under a mountain. And she can literally look at Feyre and say, I was where you are. It's going to be okay. And I think that is so important. It's what she needs. She doesn't need people to tell her, are you still being traumatized by this? Can't you get over this? And she doesn't need someone to prop her up as the savior of Prythian. What she needs is someone to say, there are good days and bad days. Don't let the bad days outnumber the good.
I think that also crosses over into Cassian and Azriel and Rhys in that they're powerful. They are obviously the strongest guys, right? Like they are doing all the things. And they still prop each other up. Like Moore is trying to prop up Feyre. And they still are like, hey man, I'm going to put my hand on your shoulder. It's okay. We're going to get through this. Like they're still coping with their trauma. So they're still feeling inadequate. They're still feeling nobody likes me. They're still feeling I'm alone and no one is like me. All of them feel like that. And I think they realize that they are all similar, and that's how they all are supporting each other.
This is also the chapter chunk where we have that moment that we've talked about since book one, where Cassian looks at Feyre and says, like, she thinks that she sees in him, I know what it's like to be hungry. He asks her, tell us your story. They're all just silent for a while. It's trauma. She's like, yeah, we had money and we lost it. And I was a teenager who had to feed my family because my dad was too sick and broken to go get food and my sisters wouldn't. And then, I killed a fae and then I got stuck under the mountain. Oh my God. The last 10 years of this girl's life have been trauma after trauma, and it's still going on.
And she getting forced to kill people. It's horrific. This is not face smut. This is getting lost in a world where the characters are showing that, like, yeah, sometimes things in your life suck, and you know what? We're going to help you get through it. They're helping us get through our shit, just like they're helping each other get through their own shit.
And it's things that they have in common, right? Cassian probably doesn't want to kill all the people he has to kill as the general of the Night Court's armies. Asriel probably does not want to kill the people that he does. And we learn later on that when they bring people under the hewn city, Asriel is the one who will torture them. He is the torturer so badly that Cassian can't even stay in the room sometimes. We know that Rhys did not want to kill all the people he had to. The Fae from the Summer Court, Claire Bador, all of these other ones. They were forced into doing it, just the same as Feyre. These are things that are very traumatic, yes, but they are also ways to connect and be like, I've done this too. I can help you get through it.
So is Amryn and Moore. Like, everyone is trying to help everyone. I love that it's literally like the trauma bonding that you were talking about earlier of like working in the ER. Like, I get it. It sucks. You know what? Let's talk about it, or let's not. But like, everybody just has each other's back. It's such a team sport to be in the inner circle in Valeris.
It's such a place where you don't want to be because it is so hard. But if you're going to be in any court, this is the one I want to be in. This is the one that supports you.
There's not very many people that can do it. So we're going to do it.
Yeah.
I'll be the one. I'll be the one to do it.
Yeah. Okay, so let's move on to other mentionables that we had in this chapter chunk, things that we're going to be putting as encyclopedia entry points.
Why don't you start out with yours, because yours are first because you're more responsible than me. And then I will just like pipe in when I have things that I want to say, and then we can get to mine at the end. Cool?
Love it. My first one is on page 163. It's Amryn speaking, and she says, "Only once was there a human made into an immortal. Interesting that it should happen again right as all the ancient players have returned. But Miriam was gifted long life, not a new body. And you, girl, your very blood, your veins, your bones were made, a mortal soul in an immortal body." First of all, that is the same thing that Rhys says to her at the end of the last book when he says, "You're very special because you have a human heart in a Fae body." But what does Amryn mean when she says, "Since the ancient players have returned"? Who is that? Is that Hybern? Is that Rhys returning to them?
It makes me wonder if in the future books, okay, so we already know the crossover between Crescent City and ACOTAR, and we already know the slight fall through of the red of Throne of Glass. Is there in future books going to be a plot where more of the ancient people are returning, and this is like just the beginning of it? Because like we have no idea what SJM has planned. That's my first thought. Also, we have Amryn, we have Feyre, we have Miriam, we're gonna have Jurian, we're also gonna have Nesta, and we're gonna have Elaine. Not as ancient characters or immortal beings from the past, or however she phrases it, but we have these unique people who are going to be made, right? So like calls to like, and how is that going to come into play?
Well, and Elaine and Nesta are made in a different way than Feyre. They are made through the cauldron, through the origin of Prythian, the origin of magic. Feyre is gifted life and gifted a new body by the holders of magic in this world.
And we're going to have to pay attention to the story of Miriam and the
Very
story
much so.
of Jurian, because how are they going to be? I mean, is Jurian going to be the same thing as Elaine and Nesta and made through the cauldron? We're going to have to pay attention because these are all made people.
My next points to bring up, we get a title for the Court of Nightmares, Hewn City, and we also have the Court of Dreams. Something I want to like look into is when we learn more about the other courts. But like, does the Spring Court have anything like this? The Court of this, the Court of that? Because we know it has the pond of starlight, but does it have anything other than towns and villages?
And where the hell is Tamlin always going?
Right. Where is he going?
Can I just say one more thing about the Court of Nightmares or Court of Dreams?
Yeah.
Or were you still on that?
Nope, go.
I think it's interesting that Feyre continues to have nightmares while she's living in the Court of Dreams.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. That is interesting. We also learn about the prison, and I think Amryn stayed there, so how did that happen? When did she get free? How long has she been free? Also, what is it? And we learn through Crescent City 3, spoiler, we haven't gotten there yet, there's a lot of power underneath even the bone carver who is supposed to be at the bottom of the mountain. That's where the Asteri is. That's where the goddess is. I can't remember her name, but she's the one that Azriel says looks exactly like Rhys's sister, the hologram.
If I remembered anything, I would know, but I don't.
Yeah. And who else is imprisoned here that we haven't met yet?
And one question I have is if this is potentially an eighth court, could be a crossover for future books. If this is potentially an eighth court and Rhysand is the person that is putting these punishments into place, if you are the most powerful ruler of Prythian, the most powerful High Lord, and you are the person who is doling out punishments, and you are in charge of the prison, and you are the only person that can get in the prison, does it not kind of seem like he's the king of Prythian?
Well, and at a later point, they do talk about that. Now, here's a question I just thought of. Why didn't Amarantha go to the prison, or did she? Did she not know about it? Why did Amarantha let all of these beings that are so evil stay there? Because Rhys had the power to free them.
Oh, like if Amarantha knew about the prison, why did she let all the people stay in the prison if she was controlling Rhys and Rhys controls the prison? Why didn't she free all the bad people to help her with her bad plots? Is that kind of what you're saying?
Yeah. That's something I just thought of. We learn about the bone carver, the weaver. We learn about these creatures that have been trapped in Prythian, which is probably going to be a side quest episode. We learn about something called Lapland, and it's, I don't know, there aren't many places that are specifically mentioned, so my question was, where is Lapland? And for the record, it is Lapland, which I imagine is where she got it from, is in the northern...
love your English pronunciation. Lapland.
Lapland. It's the largest northernmost region of Finland, and it's where the northern lights are, midnight sun, and where apparently Santa Claus's village is. We learn a little bit more about the history of Prythian. Claire Bedore is mentioned again. She's, again, a motivation for Feyre. This character that is never actually on paper. We never actually get a character for her. We just see her body. But she's mentioned again as a motivation for why Feyre has to do this.
I think she represents your average human that Feyre is trying to protect.
She represents humanity, and she represents what's going to happen to humanity, including her sisters, if she does not do these things.
Mm-hmm.
Music of the Weaver. It's an interesting point.
I want to get real meta, real quick.
Well, that's the whole podcast.
The Weaver is singing a song, so it's music, about a king who's making a musical instrument. And then, so she's doing music about music. And like, I think at one point in time, I heard you say yesterday when we were meeting, paying attention to music in the future. And like, does that play a part in anyone else's big journey? but like the music about the music, and then the music being about a king, and then while she's singing about a king, that's when Feyre finds the ring, and it's a ring with a blue stone. I associate blue with Dorian and Asriel, but mostly Dorian, because if we're talking rings and big jewels and stuff, like we need to pay more attention to what Dorian's line or his little brother's line about like blue rings. Is there anything in the future that we need to pay attention to that?
We're kind of going to bounce between music and rings just for a moment, but music plays a huge...
It led into rings.
Right. It plays a huge part in Throne of Glass. The music that Aelin listens to, or that Selena listens to, is the moment when she's no longer an assassin. She's just someone appreciating music.
Wait,
and then,
you're talking about when she goes up in the rafters. We talked about that earlier.
I
Yes.
know. And then when the musicians all play the song of Orinth, is that what it is? The hymn of Orinth?
Where everyone dies.
It's
like
the last time they're ever
room.
seen. Yeah. And it's just, I don't remember if there's
the
anything
red wedding.
Yeah. I don't remember if there's anything in Crescent City, but music plays a huge part in these characters, because don't forget the music that Rhys sent down to Feyre, and I don't think she's heard it yet, or maybe that was last episode, where he says, you were breaking, I had to do something, so he sent her music from his home. But yeah, so the significance of the rings, we have the ring that Tamlin gave to her, we have the ring that she had to hunt herself, and it's a 6-pointed star inside of the...
Not 8-pointed, right?
Not
Isn't that
8-pointed.
interesting?
That's really interesting. So part of me was like, is this before she wanted to latch on to an 8-pointed star? Like, because I think the 8-pointed star is more significant in Crescent City.
And Throne of Glass with the witches, right?
Yeah, I think so.
I think so. I don't remember anything.
I remember the 3-faced goddess for the witches. I don't remember the star, but I do remember there being a star in Throne of Glass. We learn a little bit more about the priestesses and what they are doing in Prythian. So any entry points for you that I missed?
Yeah, I want to go back to the rings. The fact that Rhys's mom gave him the ring, but then when he came of age, she gave it to the weaver to hold on to him, to hold on to it for him so that he wouldn't waste it. Does that mean that she wanted a powerful woman to be able to get that ring and he wouldn't accidentally waste it on someone who was not his equal or wasn't worthy to be able to get the ring back? I mean, I guess he could have got it himself, but apparently he couldn't.
Yeah.
So the only person that could get it was the girl. So like she made sure that he was set up for success in finding, I don't know, the right girl, the right mate, the right partner.
Maybe she knew something.
I mean, the Starlight Pond. That's all I'm going to say. The Starlight Pond.
Yeah.
We have no idea what has happened in the past yet. And
all right,
I hope
what else,
we find out.
What else do you have?
Like calls to like. We hear about, this is our first mention on page 201 about like calls to like. And we hear that multiple times. A lot in the next multiple books. This is also the first call out to somebody's experience in the afterlife of what happens after they die. And we do hear about that in Crescent City, and we might hear about it in Throne of Glass. I don't remember, but I know we hear about it in Crescent City after Bryce dies and like finds her way back to Rowan because of her tattoos that she has on her. So I like the idea of like paying attention, and we're tracking death experiences and afterlife experiences. We're first hearing about the book of breathings on page 201 to 202. And the last thing is the laws regarding the
Yeah.
weaver of the wood, like on page 213. Who makes these laws protecting the weaver? And then on 214, it says, the laws are made by the strongest, meanest, most cunning. So is the weaver of the wood at the top of their food chain? Like,
I
is
feel
this
like she
part of the
is.
Fey Treaty? Who's making laws for how
Hmm.
people can interact with the weaver? Like that is something that I don't feel was addressed a lot, but I'd like to pay attention to, and hopefully it is addressed more. And then is it Fae versus humans versus other beings from other worlds? Maybe Hybern is part of that. Was Amarantha part of that? Because I've always said I think Amarantha is Valg, and I think Amarantha and Maeve are like similar characters. We also have Amarin, we have the Bone Carver, Weaver of the Wood, their older brother Chia
Touch Koshki or whatever.
that no one knows what his name is.
Yeah. So many great points for the encyclopedia. Next on our agenda is anything like crossover points or things like that. I'll start with mine if that's okay.
I put none in, so you can cross over all you want. I
Okay.
totally missed this part.
So we have a Crescent City link with the prison itself. This is where Bryce ends up, and we learned that Reese's blood is the key to opening the prison, but maybe Bryce's blood could as well. This is the crossover. The prison is where the unicorns or the Pegasus pop up from, because they do in the Crescent City world. We
Why
in
were Pegasus in the prisons? I want to pay
well,
attention to that. Why were they
yeah,
in there?
yeah. A small throne of glass link. We're told that there are rips in the world. That's how Amryn ended up here, but that's also how we see Aelin going from world to world to world. So, what world did Amryn come from? Is she from Throne of Glass? Is she from Crescent City? Is she from another world that we have not met? And we know this isn't her original form. So could she be someone we've met before? Could she be another beast? Could she be Kaltane, one of the 13? Could she be Abraxos? Who is this woman? And then
this.
on 226, we learned that
I recognize this. I highlighted it and I didn't say it. I didn't even see that you put it in
oh,
here.
yeah. We learned that the Weaver has black blood. Who else has black blood? Maeve and the Valg from Throne of Glass. And then there's going to be some foreshadowing here for Akatar on 233 when we're in Rhys's memory of Ianthe's attempted sexual assault of him. He breaks her hand, and in book 3, when Feyre sees Ianthe doing the same thing to Lucian, she has Ianthe break her hand in the same way. And on the same page on 233, Ianthe says to Rhys, "You will regret this." And then she is the one who almost whispers in Tamlin's ear that maybe they could assassinate or get rid of Rhys. So I think she still has this anger towards him. And why, when he came to break up the wedding, she paled and ran away. We learn a lot more about like their history. The symbol, I already mentioned it, the 6-pointed sapphire star, and other patterns noticed. The door that leads to the bone carver, how similar that is to the door in Elena's tomb. And the fact that Feyre's door is also drawn or carved with those swirls and whirls. I think that there's a bone carver reference in Throne of Glass, but we haven't gotten there. But are there any carved doors in Crescent City? I'm trying to think. I think there's one in the underworld part.
The underworld.
Yeah, but these are things that I just wanted to mark, but also crossovers.
Also, like, just with carvings and things. In Throne of Glass, when Aelin goes to that temple, aren't there a bunch of carved doors there?
I can't remember.
When she goes to the temple and sets everything on fire.
Oh, maybe.
We'll get there.
We'll get
there.
We've got time.
We have time.
All right. I think that's all I have.
Next chapters are going to be chapter 22 through 28. What we're watching for: how are Nesta and Cassian's initial interactions when they go back to the manor that Nesta and Elaine and their dad live on. How is that going to shape their future? I'm so curious because I love Cassian and Nesta.
Me too. We also learn, or we also see the Ator return, and we're going back to the human world. So we're going to watch for how Feyre is perceived by her family and by the human servants, kind of tying back to this week's episode with the idea of family. What does that mean now that she's Fae? And how do the Illyrians act or are perceived in the human world?
The last, what I have printed under the theory we're taking in: do Feyre and Rhys and company do their best to make this human emissary base of the sisters' manor successful? I want to pay attention to who is the biggest success and who is the biggest fail, and like watch how that plays out in our future chapters.
Okay. Do you know what I would really love to do right now?
No, I have no idea. Please tell me. What would you like to do?
I'd love to go meet for a margarita and talk about some more encyclopedia points. You free maybe in the next 15 minutes?
Only if you are also down to talk about maybe some side quest episodes, because I think we have a side quest coming.
You know what? I think I'm down for that. All right, guys, we'll see you next week with a side quest episode too.
And I will see you in 15.
See you in 15. Bye, guys. Bye, Rev.